Welcome to our video on 10 more fish you should never eat. Our last video on 7 fish you should never eat was a hit, and we had many comments and questions about additional fish. So we expanded our research and compiled a bigger picture of the fish that can potentially cause major health problems, as well as healthier options to help you make better choices when it comes to seafood consumption. To understand what fish is helping and what fish may actually be damaging your body. Okay, let's recap our first video. The original 7 fish that you should never eat included tilapia, king mackerel, orange roughy, swordfish, shark, tilefish, and eel. Broadly, these tend to contain high levels of toxins, such as mercury, PCBs, and other heavy metals, which can be extremely harmful to human health. It's a serious concern because these contaminants can lead to neurological problems, increased heart disease risk, and more. Okay, so that's the original 7 to avoid. Now let's move on to our expanded list of 10 more, including other popular fish that contain heavy metals, some dodgy farming practices to be aware of, mislabeling, and other considerations, as well as a complete list of super healthy fish that are less likely to be contaminated. But first, can you do us a favor? Click on the thumbs up and help us spread the word about heart disease prevention, and ring the bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. We want to make sure you get the latest info so you can live a long, healthy life. And stick around to find out how to get 2 heart healthy free gifts. We guarantee both you and your heart will love them. Okay, let's get into it. Number 10. Marlin. The majestic marlin is admired for its beauty and prowess. However, this one is better left in the ocean. Marlin are known to accumulate high levels of mercury due to their position at the top of the food chain. Mercury is a toxic heavy metal present in the oceans due to both natural and human activities. Fish accumulate mercury over the years, particularly fish that live longer or are at the top of the food chain. When we consume fish, we're often getting small amounts of mercury, which can pose major health risks, including neurological damage, cognitive impairment, vision loss, hearing loss, kidney dysfunction, and cardiovascular disease. That's why it's important to choose low mercury fish and consume it in moderation. But because marlin eat smaller fish and have no natural predators, they accumulate a lot of mercury over time. And while everyone should avoid marlin, it's particularly important for pregnant women. Studies have found high levels of mercury in breast milk, showing that this toxin is passed on through breast milk, where it can have a magnified effect on early development. According to a panel at the Harvard Center for Risk Analysis, parental exposure to methyl mercury has been associated with a decrease in IQ, while other studies found deficits in neurobehavioral test scores in children. So it's best to stay away from marlin. It's a high mercury fish, which is linked to severe health issues, and there are simply better options to choose from, which we'll cover later on. Number 9. Tropical reef and warm water fish. Ciguatera poisoning is a big problem in tropical and subtropical regions, including the Caribbean, Pacific Islands, the Indian Ocean, and the Gulf of Mexico. It's something you want to avoid at all costs, as the consequences can be dire. Ciguatera poisoning comes from fish contaminated with ciguatoxins. These are naturally occurring toxins produced by microscopic algae found in coral reef ecosystems. Ciguatoxins accumulate in various species of predatory reef fish, including grouper, barracuda, sturgeon, sea bass, red snapper, amberjack, parrotfish, and triggerfish. Now, some of these fish can be found in different parts of the world. What we're really concerned about here are the ones grown in warm water and around reefs, which are particularly vulnerable to ciguatera poisoning. Symptoms of ciguatera poisoning can be diverse, ranging from nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, to headaches, dizziness, and muscle aches. In severe cases, people experiencing difficulty breathing, irregular heartbeat, and even temporary paralysis. Recovery can take anywhere from a few days to several months or years, and some people suffer with long-term recurring symptoms. Unfortunately, cooking doesn't destroy this toxin, and worst still, ciguatera poisoning appears to be increasing due to warming oceans, which contributes to the proliferation of the toxic algae. Prevention is key with this one, so if you're vacationing on a tropical island or anywhere with warm water, it may be best to avoid consuming large predatory reef fish. Search for news updates in the area or ask a local if there are currently any ciguatera outbreaks. Finally, avoid eating internal organs, as that's where toxins accumulate the most. Number 8. Farmed shrimp. Shrimp is one of the most popular seafood choices worldwide, and in the US, it's estimated to make up 25% of seafood consumed. As the demand for shrimp has skyrocketed, so has the intensity of farming practices. This is where the problems arise. With more shrimp being grown in less space, disease and contamination have become significant issues. To combat these problems, farmers often resort to using chemicals and antibiotics. As a result, farmed shrimp present a particularly concerning problem when it comes to antibiotic resistance. A 2015 study published in the journal Biomed Research International found that 75% of the bacteria strains in farmed shrimp samples showed antibiotic resistance. This is alarming, as antibiotic resistance leads to more difficult to treat infections and illnesses in humans. To make matters worse, one of the challenges with shrimp is the difficulty in tracing the origins of shrimp sold in the market. Shrimp is often mislabeled or has no information at all, making it hard for consumers to know the truth about where their shrimp comes from and under what conditions it was produced. According to a 2014 investigation by the Oceana Group, 30% of the shrimp samples they tested in the US were mislabeled, making it impossible for consumers to know exactly where they're buying. So be cautious about farmed shrimp. Look for a supplier you can trust, who shows transparency and traceability along the supply chain. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Your health may just depend on it. Number 7. Spanish mackerel. Spanish mackerel, a popular and delicious fish, has become a staple in many seafood lovers' diets. And while the Spanish variety contains less mercury than its cousin, the king mackerel, caution should be exercised. As we discussed, mercury poisoning increases your risk for cardiovascular disease, kidney damage, problems with focus and brain health, and more. In addition to mercury, Spanish mackerel is often contaminated with polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, industrial chemicals that were banned in the 1970s, but still persist in the environment. PCBs accumulate in the fatty tissues of Spanish mackerel, and have been linked to various health issues, including cancer and reproductive problems. Now, some species of fish are more susceptible to contamination. But there's another major factor we need to discuss: location. The location where your fish is produced can have a significant impact on the levels of contamination. A particularly interesting 2006 study looked at the mercury levels of Spanish mackerel caught along the Atlantic coast of the southeastern USA, compared to the Gulf of Mexico. The analysis found significant differences between the two groups. Specifically, mercury levels in Spanish mackerel from the Atlantic coast ranged from 0.04 to 1.3 parts per million, ppm. In contrast, Spanish mackerel from the Gulf of Mexico were significantly higher, ranging from 0.09 to 3.2 ppm. In effect, if you were going to eat Spanish mackerel, according to this data, you would be far safer getting it from the Atlantic coast than the Gulf of Mexico. But the broader message is, researching where your fish comes from can make a big difference for avoiding heavy metal poisoning. That said, Spanish mackerel in general can be considered a moderate risk fish when it comes to heavy metal contamination. Number 6. Barsa. Barsa, a type of catfish native to Southeast Asia, has become increasingly popular in recent years due to its affordable price and delicate flavour. However, there are several reasons why you might want to think twice before adding it to your shopping list. Most of the world's barsa is farmed in Vietnam along the Mekong River, an area notorious for bad farming practices that put quality at risk. The crowded conditions of water sourcing in barsa farms makes them vulnerable to disease. To combat this, farmers often resort to using chemical agents and drugs to control pathogens and parasites. Unfortunately, these chemicals accumulate in the fish, posing significant health risks to consumers, including antibiotic resistance, neurological problems associated with pesticides, and food poisoning. Furthermore, a 2016 study observed that 70 to 80% of barsa exported to European countries were contaminated with Vibrio bacteria, and 30% were contaminated with coagulase-positive staphylococci. These pathogenic microorganisms are known to cause severe gastroenteritis. So when research shows a 70 to 80% contamination rate, it's cause for concern. With all this considered, it might be best to avoid barsa fish altogether. Number 5. Fish oils. While it may seem like an odd one out on this list, it's important to mention fish oils. After all, this is a channel about preventing heart disease, and many people concerned about heart disease end up turning to fish oil. Fish oil has long been promoted as a supplement with numerous health benefits. But recent studies show that these supplements might not be as helpful as we thought, and they could even be harmful. One of the major problems with fish oil supplements is that the healthy fats in them can go bad. Fish oil contains polyunsaturated fatty acids, also known as PUFAs, which are very sensitive in oil form and can easily oxidize when exposed to light, heat, or oxygen. When PUFAs in fish oil oxidize, they cause inflammation, damage cells, and can contribute to the development of various diseases. One of the most concerning effects of oxidized PUFAs is their potential to speed up atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of plaque in the arteries. Studies have shown that many over-the-counter fish oil supplements have oxidation levels significantly higher than recommended safe levels. In some cases, up to 80% of the supplements tested exceeded acceptable oxidation levels. There are a number of other controversies surrounding fish oils, but oxidation is the most significant factor, which tips it into the category of harmful. Unfortunately, consuming these supplements may not only negate the expected health benefits, but actually contribute to the very issues that it's intended to prevent, like heart disease. Number 4. Deep-fried battered fish. It's not only about what you eat, but how you eat it. Deep-fried battered fish, a staple in fast food restaurants, can take a serious toll on heart health. One major reason is the use of cheap and reused vegetable oils in the frying process. These oils tend to oxidize and become rancid quickly, which increases the levels of harmful free radicals. Reusing oils only makes the problem worse. Additionally, the high temperatures used in deep frying, combined with carbohydrate-rich batter, give rise to the formation of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs are toxic compounds that result from the reaction between sugars and proteins. These harmful substances skyrocket oxidative stress and inflammation in the body, further increasing the risk of health problems. Ultimately, deep-fried battered fish can contribute to a range of cardiovascular issues, such as atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, heart attacks, and strokes. So, although it may be appetizing, deep-fried battered fish poses a significant threat. For optimal cardiovascular health, opt for healthier cooking methods, such as baking or grilling. whenever possible. Okay, back to the worst species. Number 3. Moray eel. Moray eels are fascinating creatures, with their long, snake-like bodies and menacing jaws, but when it comes to consuming them, it's best just to say no. Moray eel is commonly used in dishes like grilled eel, soup, sushi, curry, and ceviche. However, health bodies like the CDC warn against eating moray eel at all. Moray eels, like other large predatory fish, tend to accumulate very high levels of mercury. Moreover, moray eels can carry a parasite called gnathostomata, which can infect humans. The larvae of this parasite can cause a condition known as gnathostomiasis when ingested, which can lead to severe abdominal pain, vomiting, fever, and even damage to the central nervous system. Due to these risks, we advise against consuming any moray eel. Number 2. Barracuda. Just like moray eels, barracuda is a powerful and fearsome predator, but it should be completely avoided. Earlier we discussed ciguatera poisoning, the toxin that is common in warm waters and leads to serious health problems that can last for years. As a top predator in these ecosystems, the barracuda accumulates ciguatoxins at significantly high levels. In fact, data shows that barracuda is one of the most likely fish to cause ciguatera poisoning. Around 50,000 people per year experience ciguatera poisoning, including a number of people who commented on our previous video, and they attest to the fact that this is a problem you want to avoid at all cost. Finally, it's important to reiterate that ciguatera poisoning cannot be neutralized by freezing or cooking fish, and it can't be detected through taste or smell. So staying away from barracuda is the best option. Number 1. Pufferfish. Pufferfish, also known as fugu, is an exotic delicacy, mainly found in Japanese cuisine. However, there's a catch. Pufferfish are highly toxic, and consuming them can be fatal. The Japanese government strictly regulates the preparation of pufferfish, with chefs undergoing rigorous training and certification. But despite the precautions, cases of pufferfish poisoning continue to occur. While less common than other types of food poisoning, the potential risks associated with pufferfish are huge. Tetrodotoxin, the toxin found in pufferfish, causes numbness, dizziness, difficulty breathing, paralysis, and in severe cases, even death. Symptoms develop rapidly, and death can occur within 6 hours. Tetrodotoxin is actually more lethal than cyanide, making the risks of eating pufferfish incredibly high. Additionally, there is no antidote for tetrodotoxin poisoning. So, while pufferfish may seem like an exciting culinary adventure, the potential consequences of consuming it are far too great, making it the number 1 fish you should never eat. So, that's it for the worst fish. Before we get into the best fish, let's quickly recap the fish you should never eat. Starting from the top, we have tilapia, king mackerel, orange roughy, swordfish, shark, tilefish, eel, and from today's list to avoid we have marlin, tropical reef and warm fish including grouper, sturgeon, sea bass, red snapper, amberjack, parrotfish and triggerfish caught in warm water locations. Next we have farmed shrimp, Spanish mackerel, basa, fish oils, deep fried battered fish, moray eel, barracuda, and finally pufferfish. It's an extensive list, but well worth taking a note. Now, before we get on to the healthiest fish that you can choose, Heart Disease Code would love to give you a free book, The Surprising Truth About Fat and Cholesterol, plus the first episode of the untold story of heart disease, something that everyone concerned about heart health should watch. Click the link in the description below to claim these free gifts. Okay, let's get back to the video and look at the best fish. The healthiest fish to eat are typically those that are wild caught, as they tend to have fewer contaminants and a more natural diet than their farmed counterparts. Wild-caught fish are generally exposed to fewer pollutants, such as antibiotics and pesticides, which can accumulate in farmed fish. Furthermore, wild fish often have a more diverse diet, leading to a better nutrient profile and flavour. Some of the healthiest fish species from around the world include: Number 1. Wild-caught salmon. Number 2. Sardines. Number 3. Mackerel. Just not the Spanish or king mackerel varieties. Number 4. Cod. Number 5. Herring. Number 6. Anchovies. Number 7. Trout. Number 9. Halibut. Number 10. Arctic char. Number 11. Barramundi. Number 12. Mahi-mahi. And number 13. Skipjack tuna. While it's impossible to provide an absolute guarantee, these fish are generally considered to have lower levels of heavy metals and contaminants compared to other types of fish. They are particularly healthy because they are rich in essential nutrients, such as omega-3 fatty acids, which are vital for brain function, cardiovascular health, and reducing inflammation. Plus, many of these species contain essential vitamins and minerals, such as vitamin D, which is essential for heart health, bone health, and immune function. Vitamin B12, which contributes to nerve function and red blood cell production. Selenium, which acts as a powerful antioxidant. And niacin, which is vital for energy production and metabolism. Take a note of these fish and keep an eye out in your local market for them. And for a few final tips, choose smaller fish as they tend to have lower levels of contaminants. Rotate the types of fish you consume to avoid accumulating contaminants from a single source. And stay informed about local fish advisories and contamination events. We really hope you found today's video useful. Now it's your turn. Do you have any questions or tips to share? Leave a comment and share it with the others in the Heart Disease Code community. And remember to get your 2 free gifts: The Surprising Truth About Fat and Cholesterol, and the first episode of the untold story of heart disease. Just click the link in the description below to get them. And remember to like this video and click the subscribe button, so that you can stay up to date as we release new videos. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a happy and heart-healthy day.